Tuesday night, July 12th, and that could mean only one thing. The Fantasy Football Buzz podcast is back on the air.
It's easy for you to say.
It is not easy for me to say, but we are back on the air, and we are ready to just start getting into the meat of fantasy football, because now is when everybody is starting to prepare for their drafts, right? During the season, you want to know who to start, who to bench, who to pick up, but none of that matters if you don't draft the right team. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're here for. That's why you've got the Commish. You've got Cyclops. You've got 2020. Gentlemen, say hello.
Hello. I'm just lost for a second.
Great job.
You're ready to get into the meat. But I don't know about you guys. My after what was an incredibly exciting free agency.
Oh, yeah.
Anticlimactic draft. It's like we've had this lull, and I think everybody, not obviously the NFL world, but the fantasy football world is so excited to get things moving. There was so much moving around, and like Commish is saying, we got how many days? It's 70 or 80.
Less than 60.
Less than 60.
Yeah.
But here at the Buzz, we are still doing our homework. So for those of you that have joined in tonight, you're in for a really good show. Commish put together a good agenda for us, and we're excited to do it.
It's not that it's just less than 60 days till, but it's like 2 weeks until training camps open.
Yeah.
And that's when you start seeing who's, there right now there's a lot of talk about who's field and what player and all this, but that's when it really starts. And then trades started today. There's a lot more trade talk going on right now because we're getting close to training camp.
Brad, you look like you're doing a Chinese horror film with the way that it keeps cutting out. I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like we have a Godzilla movie in your room there. So.
Dubbed? It's like
I was thinking
dubbed.
more of a Bruce Lee kung fu thing, not Godzilla, but either way.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. We really do want to get everybody involved. And Anthony, we appreciate it. Anthony says, good evening, guys. Haven't seen you in a little while. Good to see you. Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate that. We plan to make this a weekly thing. We all had some family obligations, places to go, people to see. We're busy men. So, but we're not too busy now. We've got the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast on our priority list. We're hoping to do this every week. But we do appreciate you coming back and checking us out again. And hopefully we can be there for you, Anthony, and everybody else who's listening to help you build your rosters. If you're listening to the show, the best thing to do is to comment on Facebook Live, Twitter Live, YouTube. We're now on Twitch. You can get us. You can comment. We'll be happy to answer any of your fantasy football questions. And as we said goodbye to Brad.
Okay.
And you can also call us at 772-800-BUZZ. It is toll free. So give us a call, 1-800-2899, and ask your fantasy football questions. We'll be happy to answer them for you. We know the draft's coming up. But tonight, we're going to do something special tonight. Tonight, we're going to look at the AFC, and we're going to talk about each team in the AFC. Who is the must-have player on that team? Who is the bust on that team? And who is the sleeper on that team? Keith, do you want to give us a little definition here of a bust versus a sleeper? I mean, how are we looking at this?
Yeah, so a sleeper, it might not necessarily be someone that you wouldn't thought of, but it's someone that you're getting in the middle to later rounds that could really outperform and act as if he was someone that might have been taken in the early rounds. Someone that's, I would say performing ahead of his draft position is what I would call a sleeper.
And then a bust on the other end, right? Somebody who was drafted,
yes,
or their ADP is much higher.
Right, exactly.
And how they perform.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And then a must-have, these are early round guys that you can really feel comfortable are going to perform where they're being drafted, and just some of those guarantees, some of those guys that you feel like there's a lot of hype, and they're going to fulfill that hype.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got to take injury into consideration as well, right? Because you could say somebody, and I'll, let's say, Raheem Mostert, right? Somebody who, if healthy and if in a team where he was a starter, he could be somebody drafted high.
You're going to start with me already.
Look, I'm a Mostert fan now. He's back in Miami where he started. So no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Mostert.
Yeah.
Travis. Good to see our buddy Travis, one of our favorite listeners. Chief said Marquez Valdes-Scantling is your best receiver on the field right now. It's possible. I was listening to the NFL channel on Sirius XM, and they were actually talking about, well, look, without Hill, now the Chiefs have to throw to other receivers, so they're actually going to be better. And I'm like, man, you are pushing an agenda that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
The fact that you think that the Chiefs are going to be better with Valdes-Scantling, I mean, look,
Schuster without
Schuster,
that's insane.
Nicole Hardman. I mean, look, Travis Kelce is still going to be the guy, right? And and Travis Kelce probably should be the first tight end taken off the board, but to me, especially with a subpar running game, and we can always talk about that later. And I don't know which of you has the Chiefs tonight, and I don't know if you're going to bring that up, but I'm concerned about the Chiefs this year. And Jonathan Taylor is going to be hot this year. Yeah, I think that's a consensus. I think right now he's a consensus
number one,
not only running back number one, but overall number one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Commish. You don't lose arguably one of the top three in a position. Tyreek Hill is arguably top 3, top 4 wideout in the league, and say that your team's going to be better. It just doesn't happen. That guy's dynamic, and they got Mahomes. They got a good coach, and they got a lot of pieces there. But I think that's reaching, and no one knows who that receiver.
So can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay. So what do you do in Green Bay? Right, you're having the same conversation you are with Rodgers.
Adam's gone. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but there's also. Again, we're not looking at. I was talking about how NFL radio was saying that the Chiefs are going to be better even without Hill because Mahomes has to throw the ball around, so it gives other people an opportunity. Almost like they were only throwing to Hill because Hill wants them to do that. Like they were just. I think they had an agenda. They were trying to make it seem to get the hype up for Kansas City with Green Bay, Brad. And it's a good question. It's Rodgers, and until Rodgers is not their quarterback, right? They put Love in, it's a whole other story. But as long as Rodgers is the quarterback, there is value in Rodgers, not as much value necessarily, but also Alan Lazard, for example, is not going to come in and be Devontae Adams. So don't think you can just plug and play certain players.
I think Kansas City has a much better opportunity to and be good and have a lot of fantasy value there. It's just going to be depending on than Green Bay right now. Mm-hmm. I just don't think Rodgers has the players.
I think they have more tools. I agree.
They have guys that know the system. All right, Chiefs, and I have the Colts.
So we got a 1 hour show and a lot to cover. So I say we dip our feet right in the pool, Commish.
That's right. Let's do it. And what we're going to do, and like I said, we're going to start with the AFC. Next week, we'll do NFC. This week, we're going to take the NFC, go through each division, and we're going to talk about who is the must-have, the bust, and the sleeper on each of those teams. And if you out there do not agree, you think one of us is absolutely crazy and wrong, I want to hear it. Chat. Put a comment, something, call us, whatever you want to do. We'd love to hear from you. We are going to start with the Dolphins' nemesis, the Buffalo Bills. Brad, what say you on the Bills?
Well, Bills, it's not necessarily because we're talking about a sleeper or a bust, and obviously no brainer. Josh Allen, quarterback there, the absolute must. And there could be other musts, but Allen is the guy that drives that. He runs, he scores touchdowns running, he throws in the air, on the ground. No problem. Not even a thought about that.
Is he your first quarterback off the board?
At this point today, if I'm drafting, Yeah, and yes, he is.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got way too many weapons around him.
What about your sleeper in Buffalo?
Sleeper is Cook. Okay, they drafted this guy. It's Dalvin's brother. We know they have Singletary. We know they have these other, kind of hacks in the backfield. Whistle ball last year, but I think if Cook can come out and show something, draft him high. You're going to take him late, or not take him at all on your team, depending on the type of is my sleeper on this team, right? Davis isn't a sleeper. He broke out at the end of last year, second half of the year overall, and then broke out in the playoffs and whatnot.
I'm kind of curious who your Buffalo bust is.
What's that?
I'm curious who your bust is for Buffalo.
Terry.
Oh, Singletary. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I think people are going to take him. He's probably like he's an RB2. I just think that if Cook, again, on the flip side, if Cook can come out and show he can plug into this offense, I think he's got more spark than Singletary in the point during the year.
Well, let me say this real quick. I'm not touching Buffalo running backs. I don't think they're RB2s. I think they're 3s. I don't even think they're flexes. And with regard to Cook, I think there's a problem when you have a 5'11", 200-pound running back protecting your Pro Bowl quarterback. I think it's going to be a while before we see Cook. I think Cook's going to end up being a third down back in Buffalo, at least for the time being. Maybe later on, because Moss didn't work out. They're always trying to fill that spot. Of course, Brian Daboll is no longer there, and he was the guy who had that offense. It really didn't feature a running back. So I agree. It could be a bust, and it could be a sleeper. We don't know, and I think preseason is going to tell us a lot.
But keep in mind, Allen is probably mobile quarterbacks in the league, so a little bit less on the protection. Not that you can afford just a little bit there.
Right. Okay, Keith, what about those god-awful Patriots?
Yes.
Sorry we even have to talk about them.
More AFC East teams that make you want to throw up. All right, so my must here, it was really hard to find a must on this team, but I think
agree.
I went with to me the safest must here, which is Damian Harris.
Kicker.
Yeah.
No, I like Damian Harris. I think that's
Damian Harris in 15 games, so that's too short of a full season, was butting up against 1,000 yards, averages 4.6 per carry, and had 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Toted the rock 202 times. He is the guy. I know they have Ramondre Stevenson there and they like him, but if there was one must to have on this team, I'm going to go with Damian Harris. Runs hard. I really like him. You're not going to believe who my sleeper is. But it was hard to find a sleeper in here. But believe it or not, my sleeper is Mac Jones. And I'll tell you why. First year in the league, he didn't – I wouldn't say he absolutely lit it up. But, for a guy first played a QBR of 92.5, but he put up 3,800 yards and 22 touchdowns. And I think that one game against Buffalo where he literally didn't come throw a pass. So if that was not a crazy windy game, he would have had a standard 200 yards. This guy's going for 4,000 and maybe 23, 24 touchdowns in his first year. So if you have to pick a sleeper on this team, it was really hard to find it. I'm going with Mac Jones. He's got the potential to do 45 and 4,530. And my bust on this team, and I hate to say this because it's an ex-Dolphin, but I got to go with Devontae Parker. I think people are going to expect a lot from him. This is a guy that has played one full season in his entire career. He's never had more than 72 grabs in a year. Last year he only played 10 games. He had 40 receptions and 515 yards. And his touchdowns, he never gets more than 4 or 5 touchdowns. So I think people might be expecting a lot from him to come in and play a big role on that team. And I don't know where people are looking to draft him, but if I had to pick a bust, I'm going with DP.
All right. Can I mention something here? All right.
Yeah, of course.
As far as the Patriots, first, Myers was traded to the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and I only have 2 words in the fact of...
No. Myers was not traded to the Bears. Henry.
Yes, Henry was... traded to the Bears. I'm sorry. Is Wes Welker. That to me makes must, not a bust for New England, because they're going to have a career year, or probably have like 1,300 yards and like 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, Devontae Parker is not Wes Welker.
No. And you know, quite frankly, Devontae Parker right now, his ADP is wide receiver 61.
Right.
With an overall average of 64, meaning a 7th round, which is a wide receiver 3. I mean, I think that's about right.
Them.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I had problems too going through some of these. Okay.
Yeah.
They have said that Mac Jones has no more beer gut and whatnot. So I think they're expecting still he's way down on the quarterback list.
So you could date him. Okay, that's fine. So let's cleanse our palate, gentlemen, and talk about the Miami Dolphins. All right. This was actually easy. Now, yes, I'm wearing the hat. Yes, I'm a homer. Yes, I probably put a little too much emphasis on Miami, but you know what? That's part of the fun of what we do. So let's talk about the must-have. Again, this is going to be obvious, just like, you know, some of the others that we're going to talk about, but it's Tyreek Hill. Now, a lot of people have already said Tyreek Hill is not going to be the same Tyreek Hill because they don't have Mahomes. Now, look, I know Mahomes is better than Tua, and I don't think anybody's ever going to tell you any differently. Even Tuanon can tell you that Mahomes is better than Tua. But look, Hill only had one long air reception, not long pass, but long catch where the ball was in the air for over 40 yards. It wasn't like Mahomes was throwing bombs to Tyreek. I think what you're going to see is Hill catching the crap out of the ball, as well as being used in a Deebo Samuel, style offense. You're going to have a lot of receptions. If you have PPR, Tyreek Hill's your guy. And yes, I know we have Jalen Waddle, but I don't think that they paid so much for Hill, gave up so much for Hill just to have him sitting there not catching footballs. So he is a must-have. As to when, I've never been a proponent of wide receivers in the first round. A lot of people are. But I have them clearly as a second-round pick. Let's talk about the sleeper. And the sleeper is Tua Tagovailoa.
Good.
And the reason I'm saying that is because he's currently listed as QB 17. In other words, he is being drafted as a low-end backup in most standard leagues. And most experts have people like Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts, and even Justin Fields ahead of Tua. And that's with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, Mike Gesicki, and pass-catching running backs like Mostert and Edmonds, right?
Right.
Tua, I'm not saying is or will, but could be. Remember, this is a sleeper. Could be a top 10 quarterback with those weapons. If you take him out and don't look at him in a vacuum, but look at him with this offense, look for him to make a major leap. He's going to end up ahead of the people that I already mentioned, but even possibly people like Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. It is possible based on that offense, and you can't deny his accuracy. It's just a matter of, will he have time to throw?
In a stretch of 3-4 games last year, we was at 80% completion percentage. So if you can get the ball into Tyreek, Jalen Waddle's hands, then they're going to do something with the ball. I agree with you.
All right. So,
bust.
Go ahead.
No, who's your bust?
Well, my busts are the Dolphin running backs, right? Edmonds, Michelle, Mostert. On their own, if they're healthy, they might be good, right? And I would have no problem. Look, I'm the guy that took Myles Gaskin last year in the 4th round. I would have no problem taking 5th round, taking one of these running backs if they were on their own. But this is a true running back by committee. Don't forget they still have Myles Gaskin, right? So until we see a clear starter, you stay away from this group. People are drafting Edmonds and they're drafting Sony Michel and they're drafting Mostert, hoping one of them ends up being the bell cow. It's not going to happen in Miami. because even if one of them is good, you're not, this isn't Ricky Williams' offense. This is a completely different offense. So, not saying none of them will have a good year. I'm not touching them. And real quick, before we move on to the Jets, I just want to give an honorable mention sleeper to Mike Gesicki. Right now, ADP is at 11. He behind Freiermuth, Ertz. I don't know. I think we're going to see some in preseason, but if they're running that San Francisco offense and he's got that George Kittle role, look out for Mike Gesicki this year.
Right.
All right. So enough of Miami. I'm sorry, guys. I get excited with the Dolphins. Let's
By
move
the way,
on to
Cyclops, did you notice how he gave us the Pats and the Bills and he took Miami? Did you notice that?
Yeah. It was actually not on purpose, but yeah, I'm glad I had it. But now we'll let Brad do his favorite team, the New York Jets. Brad, who's the must-have, the sleeper, and the bust on your team?
No one.
All right, next.
No one. All of them. No. All right. So this wasn't. So can I ask a question about the Jets?
Yeah.
What is it? So I was away. Did I miss some kind of comment he made about like dating his moms or something?
Are you kidding me? Oh, this is if for anybody that's on Twitter. If anybody's on Twitter, Zach
a lot of
Wilson
memes going around.
Slept with his mom's best friend, and this came from his ex-girlfriend, who, by the way, is a smoke show. He ends up sleeping with his mom's best friend. So every MILF, cougar, you name it, joke has come out of the woodwork. People are saying that this is the first time that the Jets will score over 40. It is unbelievable what's happening, especially since you're talking about a guy who went to BYU, was supposedly raised a Mormon. It makes everything very, very interesting.
I love it. That's great.
All right. He just went up my draft board. So we'll do this real quick because we don't really care. I'm putting in Elijah Moore. Okay,
that's good.
Rookie year, Zach Wilson will be throwing to him. So they've obviously they drafted the running back. Anyway, what's that?
Brees Hall.
Yeah. So Elijah Moore's my must, not Zach Wilson. None of the other guys. I'm on at the end of last year, strong. He should have a good year. Michael Carter, because they draft. They took this guy. Every time they gave him the ball during the game, now they were behind every, dinks to him and this, and he couldn't get a huge, fantasy. I had him on my roster, and it seemed like every week I wasn't starting him, and he was getting 15, 16 points. I'm like, why? And then the one week I do start him, he got hurt, so they needed him. So that's my bust. They drafted. They didn't draft. Why am I going blank on his name?
Brees Hall.
Twice I did that.
Brees Hall.
By
the way, who's projected to do better than Elijah Mitchell, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson? I mean, that's crazy. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. So they didn't draft him to sit on the bench. This guy's going to be plugged right into that offense. Michael Carter, he kind of, shown the door. Essentially, he's going to be a backup.
I want to know the last time the Jets had a 1,000-yard rusher. It is. I feel like it's been forever.
Yeah, if somebody out there can tell us when was the last time the Jets had a 1,000-yard rusher, it might have been Curtis Martin.
Curtis Martin, crazy.
Probably Curtis Martin.
So who's your sleeper, Brees Hall, or who's your sleeper?
No, my sleeper is Garrett Wilson, wide receiver. He's going to be lined up next to Elijah Moore. And that's who I have. There's not that many guys you can get super excited about here. That he's going to be the starter. It's not a sleeper.
So let's now shift. We finished with the AFC East. Let's now shift to the Bengals, the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, what say you on the Bengals? I mean, they've got a lot of weapons.
I mean, the hardest thing to find in the Bengals was a bust. And then talking about the must-haves, I was oscillating back and forth between Burrow and Chase because I think they're both going to blow up. But I got to go with Jamar Chase because arguably I think he might be the wide receiver one. Cooper Kupp, I mean, blew everybody out of the water. But this was, Chase's first year. And in his first season, all he did was grab 81 balls, 1,455 yards, and 13 touches. I mean, this guy he's only going to get better. So he might be the wide receiver one, if not wide receiver two. He's a must-have.
Are you grabbing him in the first round, Keith? If you're, let's say, 8 through 10.
Yeah.
I'm not a big wide receiver first round. If I'm first round wideout, if I had to, I probably would go Kupp just because Stafford loves him. And Stafford has a history of staying with the receiver. But if Kupp is gone and you're a wide receiver guy, he's considerable. To me, he's wide receiver too. I have a hard time finding someone who's two. With fair. Adams and Hill moving on.
What about Jefferson?
What's that? Jefferson's awesome, but I love Jefferson. He's amazing. I just think in that offense, Chase is going to probably do more yards and tugs. As far as my sleeper, this was really hard. And again, this is all about outperforming your draft position. And you're going to think I'm crazy, but it's T. Higgins, who is, this is a guy it's a good receiver, but I don't think people realized he had almost 1,100 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. Yeah. And that's only in 14 games. So think about it, in a full season, 3 more games. This guy is going for like 1,400 yards, close to 100 grabs, and maybe 8 tugs. That's a lot. So he is a really elite. He's butting up against elite. And I think he's going to outperform his ADP. The bust was really, really hard here because I like Mixon. I like Boyd. I don't think Boyd's going to be a bust based on where he's drafted. But I think the tight end, CJ Uzomazeta, he had a couple really big games last year. And,
he will Natty because he's not there anymore.
Right. So that's what make him a huge bust because he's now with the Jets. And that makes him even a bigger bust.
So he's going to bust. Something I have a really hard time finding a bust on this.
I honestly, when you look at where certain running backs are being drafted, Mixon? I just feel like right now that Joe Mixon, who has, a great history, I just don't think. I think in 2021, he started out. I think he had 3 or 4 games all season that were just unbelievable. Here, I just pulled it up. 31 points, 32 points, 24, 25, 26. But the rest were underwhelming. And I think what happened was once they discovered that he could throw the ball down the field to Chase and nobody could catch him, they kind of stopped rushing him. At the beginning of the season, he was getting over 20 carries a game. And at the end of the season, that kind of went away. And his yardage, 54, 58, 58, 65, 46. And the only saving grace were touchdowns and also some receptions, right? When at the end of games when they were in a shootout. All I'm saying, I'm not saying don't draft Mixon by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that right now he's listed as an RB7. He's being taken at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round because of the lack of running backs.
I think people get lost. I think people get lost. Good player on a very good team, but because he's on such a good team, people think so. Unless you really dive into the numbers, you're going to put him in that second round. And let's say in the top 14, 15 picks. But if you really look at it, that's what happened. I had him on a team. I had him on more than one team last year. And the first half of the year, he was sane. Right. And then it dropped off. So you really have to look.
This is a guy, 1,500 all-purpose yards and 16 touchdowns. I know he started the season very strong.
Absolutely.
Okay, but here's the deal, and I think he will be a top 7 RB. And a couple of things to note is Cincinnati's defense got a lot better as the year went on and kept. So and also they're going to be playing Cleveland, who has Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback, Pittsburgh, right? So they're going to be in games where they are not going to have to air it out like they were last year. They're going to be able to, and I think Mixon is going to, in the second half in a lot of these games, become their grinder, and he's going to get that rock 18, 20 times. That's why I have I think Mixon's going to have an extraordinary year, actually, based on the way that team and who they're playing and how they score and how good that defense became.
All right.
So
I guess we'll
2,000 all-purpose yards.
I don't know about 2,000, but listen, you tell me 15, 16 yards and 16 tugs. That's an RB7 right there. That's awesome. I
don't think it's dollar worthy, but if you had to pick a bus, that's the only reason I went with.
Maybe. You're right. Yeah.
16 tugs. You're getting into Deshaun Watson range.
Well played, sir.
All right, so let's do this. Let's move on to the Steelers. I'll make this really quick. Must have is Najee Harris. I don't have to go into all the details. I will say that right now I have him as RB5 or number 5 overall. The guy is incredible. Even without a quarterback, I have no problem with Najee Harris. Look for about 18 points per game for Najee. The sleeper's Chase Claypool. And I don't love the pit receivers because of the question at quarterback, but Claypool is actually being drafted as a wide receiver 45 or 98th overall, meaning 10th round. And last year he was a bust for many people with only 2 touchdowns. That kind of made that last year really bad, but he had 59 catches for 860 yards in a down year. Look for him to be the easy target out of the slot, which is where he's going to be without Juju there. That's where he belongs. So yep. I expect Claypool to actually outperform his ADP right now.
Yeah. The year before, Claypool was playing a lot more in the slot where he had his bigger year. You got Roethlisberger who had a spaghetti arm thrown to him. Couldn't get a ball really downfield, and with I think you're right there.
Yeah.
What's that?
But the bust here is questionable because I brought Claypool up and said, hey, this guy could be a sleeper. My bust is possibly Deontay Johnson. And again, I'm not saying don't draft Deontay Johnson. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is right now his ADP is wide receiver 15. So he's above people like A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. And if Roethlisberger was there, I get it. ADP at 15, no problem with that. But we have no idea who the QB is going to be. Is it going to be Mitch Trubisky? Is it going to be the rookie Pickett? Either way, it's going to be hard to see a guy who played so well start to decline because of who's throwing to him. So, look, I could make an argument, as as a lawyer, I can make an argument for any side, and I can make an argument why Deontay Johnson will outperform his ADP. But if I had to pick a bust, I just think Deontay Johnson might be the guy that people expect too much from. And that's all I have on the Steelers. Brad, let's talk about those incredible Cleveland Browns.
Man, year-to-year difference for the Browns, right? Last year, it's a total different situation. Okay, so I'll go through it real quick. So Chubb, right? Really, who else is there? As far that's it. I mean, again, it's the same as Najee Harris. Chubb is the lead back.
Yep.
But he's still, when he is a beast with it. Obviously, without it, if Brissett is playing, they could just stack the line. We've seen Brissett. We've seen him as Dolphin fans. He's not really that good. Which brings me to my bust, which is Amari Cooper, going from Dak Prescott to Brissett. Hopefully Watson one day, but we'll see how yet. But man, I just don't see Amari Cooper being open enough, really that much else on the team to take anything away from covering Cooper, Chubb, and Cooper, unless they have Chubb and Hunt on the field at the same time. But I just don't see him. He's going to be like one of these, like 6 for 48 there once in a while.
So right now they have Amari Cooper as ADP of wide receiver 26. So the question is, and I think he might be fine right around there, is that I'm going to name some receivers, guys, right? And I want you to tell me if you would take Amari Cooper over these guys or under these guys, all right? Would you take Amari Cooper over Allen Robinson with LA?
No, because he's with LA.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Would you take Amari Cooper over Amon-Ra St. Brown with Detroit?
No. Definitely.
Would you take him over Rashad Bateman, the new #1 receiver in Baltimore?
No.
What about Jerry Jeudy, the long ball, the DK Metcalf of the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson there?
No.
Okay. Just so you know, his ADP right now is wide receiver 26 is above all of those players.
Right.
So you're right. That could very much be a bust if you're looking at these guys, and I didn't even name all of them, that could end up doing much better.
Yeah. Again, this is a guy that's living off his name. And he's still a good receiver. I'm not saying he's not a good receiver. I'm saying that they don't have parts in place to make him have a good, especially fantasy year.
What about the bust?
Bust? No, that was the bust.
That was
okay. Right. So the sleeper. Yeah.
Sleeper. I mean, it was hard to find. And this is just a literally Jakeem Grant, right? We know he's quick. He'll get the ball. He's kind of like a poor man's or Waddle, but really poor. Yeah. He's got an opportunity because if they're covering Cooper, if they can get it, if whoever ball to him quick, he can get some yards, and maybe he gets 5, 6 a game, breaks one, right? Because he can. They run those little the wide receiver screens, and we've seen him do some stuff with that. That's my only thought.
Yeah, I know you're probably struggling for that.
It was struggling. Yeah.
It's a major.
Yeah, I'm back to the thing what I said about Mixon. I think if we're going to look at a high profile sleeper, then we could be talking about Kareem Hunt, who could end up actually doing better than Chubb. But yeah, that's fine. We don't need to get into the Browns. Let's talk about Keith. Let's talk about the Ravens. Actually, even though they came in last place in the division, I had so much fun watching them. I had Lamar Jackson last year and Mark Andrews, and I actually really enjoyed watching that team play. What are we looking at for 2022?
Oh, did I have the Ravens? My next one was Texans and the Raiders. Did I miss that?
Yeah, It looks like you missed the Ravens. So we can just talk about it now.
Yeah.
If there's a must-have on the Ravens, we got to go with Lamar Jackson or Mark Andrews, right? I mean, those are really the two superstars on the team.
I would probably go Andrews. Jackson is, he's awesome. It's just, he's based on ADP. He's a little iffy for me based on how high he's always being drafted. But I think it's Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews to me is probably the third tight end. After Waller, a healthy George Kittle, Kelsey, you got Mark Andrews up there who's a baller. So he's a must for me.
So let's talk about the potential sleeper. Can we call Rashad Bateman a sleeper?
I don't.
Or
I think so.
Right now Bateman is listed as wide receiver 30. I think he could absolutely end up in the top 20. He's taken over the role that Hollywood had.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I think he would actually be a good sleeper in this scenario. There are other wide receivers right now. They have nobody. They have Duvernay. They've got Jalen Moore, Tylan Wallace, Benjamin Victor, James Pro. They have nobody. So that's why I think Bateman.
Yeah,
as far as a bust, As far as a bust, can we agree that J.K. Dobbins?
So unquestionably, he's the bust because there's just when you're talking about there's too much of a split backfield with Lamar Jackson, way too many vulture touchdowns with him as he gets inside the 10 and 5 yard line. So just based on what his ADP is going to be, I think the surest bust on that team would be J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, he's the second string running back in Baltimore.
Exactly.
Where's Dobbins' ADP right now?
Dobbins' ADP right now, he's running back 22. So you're looking at an average
third round, fourth, like 40, probably
anywhere,
45.
What for Dobbins? Right now, let me see. Here we go. Yeah, 54.
54.
No,
okay.
ADP. No. I'm sorry. ADP is not. It's much higher than that. I'm sorry. ADP is 31. So he's actually going in the beginning of the fourth round.
Yeah. Because you're getting into those lower end starting running backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how much of harm's way do they win, right? If Dobbins is healthy and he's running and he's back healthy, I think to run the ball more. I'm not saying Dobbins won't be a bust. I'm saying potentially take him as an RB3.
But it's always been running back by committee there. They love Gus the Bus Edwards. He's still there, right? I mean, yeah. They love a running back by committee there.
I don't know if you remember. So this time last year, everybody was on the Dobbins train, right? J.K. Dobbins was going to be the next superstar in the NFL before he got hurt in training camp. He was going to be the guy. In fact, I had him on my sleeper list. I had him as somebody I was going to target in the second round. But all of a sudden, we see how things have changed, and we see what that offense does and does not do.
Right.
I don't see them utilizing Dobbins when you have a better running back as your quarterback.
Exactly.
But they couldn't do it. They lost all their.
Their last 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, that's another question. So we asked everybody, out there, who's the last Jets 1,000-yard rusher? Who was the last Raven 1,000? Was it Priest Holmes? Who was the last Raven 1,000 yards? Was it Jamal Lewis? Who was? Okay, So Keith, thank you for talking to us about the Ravens. I'm gonna go real quick with the Titans, and my must-have is also my bust. So let me talk about this. I have Derrick Henry as the must-have, right? The bigger question is, where are we drafting him? Right now his ADP is at 7. He's the 5th wide receiver to be drafted right now on ADP. I personally have him as an RB3 after Taylor and McCaffrey. But that's my personal. I'm not, this is what the ADP, what it's coming out to right now. Look, I think he's going to be a 15-15 guy. He's going to be 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. He doesn't catch the ball at all, but if you're running for 1,500 yards and scoring 15 touchdowns, you're a must-have. So why is he also a bust? I don't like running backs who have foot injuries, and it's hard. We don't, when he came back, it was really hard to tell if he was back, right? So we don't know if he's going to be 100% when he starts. We don't know if he's going to be 100% all year long. So I don't expect him to be a bust. But there aren't enough other Titans that are ranked high enough for me to consider anybody else a bust right now.
How old is Derrick Henry? I think we talked about this last 9 now.
I don't know. I don't know his age.
Okay.
Let me see. No, he's 27.9 years old. So he'll be 28 when the season starts.
So 28. Okay.
Still young for
but he got the mileage of a 32-year-old running back. I mean,
maybe. Remember the first few years they really didn't play him.
Yeah.
But then they overplayed him. So we know the guy. He's known for his workouts and everything.
Look, he's not going to lose his position if he's healthy, and that's one of the things that is makes him a must-have in that sense, kind of like Najee Harris. There's not somebody right behind him that is going to take his job unless he's hurt. So that's why he's both my must-have and my bust. And my sleeper is Treylon Burks. Remember that name, right? Even if it isn't this year, we're going to see Treylon Burks. He was the 18th pick of the draft. In fact, Tennessee actually traded up in order to get him. And without A.J. Brown, they need receivers. So they got Robert Woods on one side now with Tennessee.
Yep.
And we all know what he can do. But look for Burks on the other side. He's the yak god. He was like that in college. He would catch these little 2-3 yard passes and then just go nuts. Look for about 100 targets with this guy. So I have him as a wide receiver 2/3. I'm not jumping up to get him. I'm not necessarily going to count on him as my wide receiver 2, but I can see eventually him ending the season as a wide receiver 2. Treylon Burks, remember the name. Okay. And again, we've been talking a lot, and if you're listening out there and you have any questions and you think we're wrong or whatever it is, let us know. Give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ or 2899 or comment Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitch, or Twitter. Brad, I think you're next with the Indianapolis Colts.
With the Colts. We can go to the Colts. All right. So D1 for the must, right? Jonathan Taylor, mostly the consensus number one, this year. So that's obviously very easy. So they get Matt Ryan there, probably good for him. Gives them some. I think they'll be fine.
Keith,
these other.
Let me ask Keith a question. Keith, you had Jonathan Taylor in our league last year.
Yes.
Are you drafting him first overall, or you're not prepared to say that yet? If you had first overall?
If I have first overall, there's no question I would be taking Jonathan Taylor. All day. It's about as sure as sure.
Agree.
And Rocky agrees.
Okay.
So my bust here is Paris Campbell. This guy has been basically a bust since he came into the league. He's had can't stay healthy, can't stay on the field, and they still have him listed as a starting receiver. With Pittman, but it's don't draft him. Even if you're taking him in the 10th round, receiver bust. Just don't see it now. Yeah, they do get Matt Ryan. They have some other weapons here. My sleeper is the rookie out of Cincinnati. He was drafted in the 2nd round. They brought him in.
Who was it you cut out?
He's going to get Pierce. The rookie.
Oh, okay.
Pierce. He's a 2nd round draft pick for them from Cincinnati. And right now, he's going to have every opportunity. He's got a great running back, a very, very good quarterback, and a phenomenal number 1 wide receiver. And it's going to have an opportunity in that number 2 slot. Not necessarily the slot, but the number 2 wide receiver to have what I think is a very good year. Hilton's gone. T.Y. Hilton. This guy is my sleeper. It's kind of like your Treylon Burks.
All right. That'll be interesting to watch. Keith, you want to talk about the Texans?
No.
Okay.
All right, so it was really hard to find a must-have here, but I mean, it's obviously got to be Brandon Cooks, right? I mean, this guy,
yeah,
it's 6 out of 7 years goes over 1,000 yards. He is, and that's with different quarterbacks throwing him the ball. He is just undeniably a really good wide receiver. So I really like him, and he puts up the touchdowns. He's really the only guy that's proven that they have the throw there. So he's the must-have if you have to have one. Your sleeper, you're not going to believe this. It was really hard to find one, but I'm going to go with Davis Mills. And again, I'm not saying go out and draft this guy as your starting quarterback, but again,
yeah, please don't say that.
Exactly. who I believe actually has for a rookie year, he didn't really do that bad. First of all, he had a quarterback rating of almost 90 on a terrible team. put up 26, almost 2,700 yards on only 13 games. So over a 17 game season, a full season, he's projected for about 3,500 yards. And he only put up, again, 16 touchdowns on 13 games. Probably would have had 22 to 25 touchdowns. Those are not bad rookie numbers. Again, this is a guy I think you're not going to go start. If you're starting Davis Mills as you're starting fantasy, you're clearly not watching our show enough. But this is a guy that on the team is probably the sleeper because he actually looks like a real decent quarterback, and I think he can outperform where his ADP is. As far as the bust, I'm going to steal a page from the Commish's book, and I'm taking the entire running back backfield of the Texans. It's Marlon Mack, who I actually like as a running back. Anytime he was healthy on the Colts, he really actually performed decently. And Royce Freeman, I can't remember the last time the Texans had a 1,000-yard rusher. I don't think Lamar Miller ever butted up against that there. That is a terrible running team that's going to be playing behind all year, so stay away from that backfield of Marlon Mack and Royce Freeman.
Well, it's actually right. It's actually Rex Burkhead.
Oh, and Burkhead.
Burkhead is in the depth chart after Marlon Mack.
Right.
And then after that is a guy that I think would be the sleeper is Dameon Pierce, the rookie that they drafted at running back. I really like this kid. I think, maybe not at the beginning. And again, I'm not necessarily going to draft this guy. But I do think that there's some potential there that Dameon Pierce could be somebody to watch. Especially in Dynasty. If you're in Dynasty, I can definitely see drafting Dameon Pierce. Okay. So now, unfortunately, I got to talk about the Jaguars. So give me 30 seconds, right? Your sleeper is Evan Ingram.
You need
went
that
over
one.
from the Giant, from one bad team to another. But right now he's slated as tight end 22. I think he'll end the season in the top 15 just because I think he's going to end up being a mismatch. The bust I have is Travis Etienne. His ADP right now is running back 22. And this is somebody who hasn't even touched the field yet, meaning he's going to be somebody's running back 2 or their flex. And keep in mind, James Robinson, if he is healthy, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. So it's either going to be a running back by committee or Etienne will be used as a third down back. I see him being a bust at his ADP of running back 22. Your must-have, no one. Do not take a Jacksonville Jaguar on your team. Christian Kirk, I know, got big money to come over there. Until you see what that offense can do, stay away from the Jags. That's all I got for the Jags. Brad, let's talk about the Chiefs.
All right, so here we go with the Chiefs. There's going to be some controversy here. I have. So for my sleeper is
Travis Kelce.
Juju.
You're right.
Yeah. My sleeper is Juju. I know we've talked about him. He made the board already a few weeks ago. And if you don't, I just don't have I'm traveling, so I don't have my computer in front of me. Can you tell me his ADP? I know you have that up.
His ADP right now is 97, meaning 10th round.
10th round. Okay.
Wide receiver 47.
Wide receiver 47. I think as a sleeper, he's going to be top. I think he will way outperform his ADP. He'll end up around between 20 and 30, which I know is a big range, but I think he'll end up in that. I think he is a very, very good slot receiver. Mahomes. He's my sleeper there.
All right.
They had my must is Mahomes. Mahomes again until he proves right. They have Hardman, they have Scantling, they have Juju, they have Kelly back that can catch the ball. He's going to be throwing the ball. It's not going. What's that?
I'm surprised. Your bust isn't Kelce.
All right, so Kelsey's my bust. This guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Look,
go ahead.
I'm not saying he's going to, but most people are going to tight end, which they should, 100%. But he's my bust at this point. This year, I think without having Hill there, it's going to be harder. They're going to be able to double cover him more. He's also 33. He's not. I don't think he's going to have the same legs as he's had the past couple of years. A few games last year where he almost disappeared in a few games last year. 2020, I think you had him on your roster, and you were frustrated with him. If I'm
a little, but I think Kelsey is in for a really big year. I really do.
He very well could be. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just, as far as a number one tight end, I think that could be a but. I just think he'd regression this year. So we'll see.
Okay.
I got to say about that.
All right, Keith. What about the Raiders?
The Raiders just win, baby. All right, so my must with the Raiders is Derek Carr. Carr went bananas last year. The guy threw for 4,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, which, believe it or not, that was a regression. But he's always good for 20 plus. But if he dropped back 620 times, and with the addition of Devontae Adams and the way they love to air the ball out there, if we're picking a must, I like Derek Carr.
And what's interesting about Derek Carr is right now he's a QB 15.
Yeah.
So the fantasy world is not high on Derek Carr.
And all they did was get arguably one of the best receivers in football, and he has another year of Hunter Renfrow, which we'll talk about in a second. My bust is Josh Jacobs. This guy last year, put up fairly pedestrian numbers. He definitely caught more balls. I mean, that was good, but only 872 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns, which isn't terrible. I just don't like Jacobs. He had no touchdowns. By the way, do you know, this is interesting, how many receiving touchdowns does Josh Jacobs have in his career, 3 seasons?
I don't know.
0. He's never had a receiving touchdown. And they are throwing, but I just think he's a bust. I think year over year, he's looking less and less like an elite running back to me. And they have, I'm totally spacing on the
Kenyon
other
Drake.
Right, it's Kenyon Drake, exactly. So he is my bust. And as far as my sleeper, which it's hard to call him because he did so well, in the second half of the season, but it's Hunter Renfrow, 128 targets. He very quietly had a spectacular season, 103 receptions, almost 1,100 yards, 1,038 and 9 touchdowns. And I love the fact that he shares a name with a very good baseball player, another Hunter Renfrow. I love that. But I really like Hunter Renfrow. I know Devontae's coming over, and they still have Waller. And that's obviously going to eat into some of his production, and that's affecting his ADP. But I still don't think you can completely dismiss the chemistry that exists between Renfrow and Derek Carr. And having Devontae might actually take away that top cornerback and leave Renfrow open for those passes that he's been catching from Carr.
What's interesting is that there's an X factor that would agree with you on Hunter Renfrow, but would not necessarily agree with you on Josh Jacobs. And that's the new coaching system and the new coaching staff led by Josh McDaniels. And we've seen what McDaniels has done in New England. They do emphasize they love the running back and they love the slot receiver. And I don't know if that was so much a Brady thing, but I can see them definitely overusing Josh Jacobs. They do have Brandon Bolden, who was in New England under Josh McDaniels. But, where Jacobs is being drafted right now, I don't have a problem with that. Renfrow could be the sleeper. I agree. I just don't think he's going to be able to match the numbers from last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you look at last year, there was at Ruggs today. I think Renfrow kind of shot up his numbers after Ruggs had that accident, and was gone and shot up after. Now you're throwing Adams in there, right? So what's that going to do to Ruggs now? History, like you said, but there's still going to be a lot less footballs heading his way.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to jump on the Chargers. My must-have, obviously, I could have chosen between one of two people, between Herbert and Eckler. And here's why I'm choosing Eckler. In 2020, he did not a good game. I mean, not a good season. He only played 10 games. He had only 1 rushing touchdowns, and then things got much better in 2021. And he finished, if you're in a PPR league, he finished as RB3. He had 911 yards rushing with 12 touchdowns and 647 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. And that's more catches than Amari Cooper, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Boyd, Adam Thielen. So, it's hard to say that somebody like Eckler isn't going to be a must-have. He's actually my number 5 overall running back in half PPR formats and number 4 running back in PPR formats.
Wow.
Very high on Eckler this year. Take a look at what he did last year.
So you're taking Eckler not ahead of Henry?
No.
Right, because you have Henry at 3.
Right, and then Najee Harris. So
Harris,
right now,
Taylor,
if I look at it, I would say Taylor, Henry, Najee. I'm sorry, Najee, and then Eckler.
Number 4. Wow.
Yeah. You have Eckler over Kamara?
Oh yeah, because Kamara's going to miss. We don't even know how much he's going to be suspended.
Oh, that's right. He's suspended.
That offense is just
right.
Yeah, that's right. And so my sleeper right now is Mike Williams, and people don't realize that he had 1,100 yards last season. Why? Because he did most of it at the beginning of the season,
right?
And he proved what he could do, and he averaged 95 yards per game and 5 touchdowns and 10 targets per game. After that, though, he didn't get double digits in any fantasy relevant game. After that, he had a good week 18, but that wasn't fantasy relevant. So what did the Chargers do? They applied a franchise tag on him before he could reach free agency because they want him. So what makes him a sleeper? He's wide receiver 25 ADP right now. Look for him to finish between 15 and 20 in wide receivers next year. The bust is Chargers defense. I know we don't talk a lot about defense on this show, but right now they're listed as TD4. And in some cases, even going TD2. And I'm not saying that their defense is not good. They have a great defense. But what we've learned over the years is that defenses cannot be predicted, not just because of how good or bad they are, but their opponents. And with Russell Wilson going to Denver and Devontae Adams going to Vegas, the schedule just got a little harder. Now, they do have the Jags. They do have Houston and Cleveland, but they also have the Rams, Kansas City twice, San Francisco, Miami. I'm not sure if you want to draft Chargers defense as high as people are drafting them right now.
Defenses are also tough when you have a team that has such a good offense. Other teams, they have, they get them out of their game plan and they change the game plan on them.
All right, so we're 3 minutes over, but Brad, let's talk about the Broncos real quick, and we'll end the show.
I'll do it. Obviously, the must-have coming new into Denver, gonna have a party out there with the thin air is Russell Wilson.
Yep.
Right. This is the must. He's got a fresh start. Last year was not a great year for him, and so he's a must-have. The sleeper. I had this. Oh, I guess I did 2 busts. Oh well.
I can make an argument for how one of those busts is going to be a sleeper. So just go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I don't know. So one of my Gordon is my bust. Okay, they re-signed him. They have. I know they say, "Oh, we're going to use him like we did last year." Actually, I heard some things. One of the radio stations today, they were saying, "Oh, well, the coaching staff has come out and said last year, but that's a new coaching staff there." So, like him, they brought him back. He's getting older. Javonte Williams has fresh legs. We saw it last year, better running back. So I think you'll see a much different split, like 70-30. I just don't see it. So if you're looking to take Gordon as even a split back, I would stay away. My sleeper is Tim Patrick. I know Tim Patrick had a good year last year, but that was because we're both hurt, right? So you got those guys coming back, but Tim Patrick, I mean, he had 53 grabs for 7 lock. With Drew Lock. So he kind of in when you're drafting. So he's going to be way down. Take him, and then these other guys are injury prone, and you have Russell Wilson throwing the ball there. A sleeper.
All right. Well, that does it. So that was, we made it within the hour, which actually is pretty impressive. And what we're going to do next week is we're going to do the NFC, and we'll talk about the busts. We'll talk about the sleepers and the must-haves. We'll go through this all over again. And then, of course, any other fantasy relevant things that happen during the week, we will bring that up as well. I wanted to thank Anthony and Travis for listening and commenting on the show. We do appreciate it. Anybody else that's listening, even after the show ends, we still have a lot of people that listen to it on the replay on Facebook and on Twitter and on Twitch, and we appreciate them, and on YouTube. So thank you very much, guys. You want to say goodbye?
Peace. We'll see you soon.
Yep. See you next week. Thanks for listening to The Buzz.